nano positioning stage will be presented by Mr. Sabat from Indian Institute of Technology in Bangalore.
Good afternoon. So my name is John Joseph. I would like to acknowledge the first author, Sabat, who couldn't make it for the conference. And we are working in the area of high-speed nano positioning scanners. And some of the work I present today will relate to the design of a two-axis scanner. Now, why high-speed? The reason is that many of the applications of high-speed nano positioning scanners, they include applications like scanning flow microscopy or nanofiber fabrication, where the output is directly related to the scan speed. And therefore, we desire a high scan speed for these scanners. Now, the motivation for the work is as follows. The imaging speed is found to be directly proportional to the scanner's resonant frequency, and therefore we require a design where the resonant frequencies are as high as possible. Now, the simplest way to ensure a high resonant frequency is to increase the stiffness of the system. However, it seems that when you increase the stiffness of the system, there is a corresponding reduction in range of the scanner. So, any stiffness will have a trade-off of reduced range. And in literature, what we see is that prior to the implementations have primarily used design of experiments methodology to design and predict the resonant frequencies. And this method is very effective. It predicts the frequencies very well. The drawback, however, is that it's a trial and error process, and it requires experience on the part of the user. And therefore, an analytical framework is a lot more desirable so that you can predict the frequencies directly. But what we've seen is that in literature, whatever analytical relations have been given, they've been limited to those that predict the stiffness of the system and not the natural frequency itself. Also, we haven't found any relations that describe the cross-coupling of the system, which is also a very important factor to consider. So in our work, we present analytical relations for the resonant frequencies of the critical modes which will affect the scanning speed. Then the cross-coupling, primarily affected by geometric asymmetries and actuation eccentricities, which I will explain further. Based on the relations that we obtain, we then come up with a systematic design algorithm to design a two-axis scanner. And we use that algorithm to design a two-axis single kinematic scanner, which will also be presented. Now, the methodology that is used, up here is a schematic diagram of a single-axis scanner, and the methodology that we use is primarily, so the configuration uses a single kinematic configuration, and the advantage of such a configuration is that the two-axis scanner can be broken down to the design of two simple single-axis scanners. And each of these single-axis stages is modeled as a very simple one-dimensional schema system, and therefore the resonant frequencies of these scanners are determined simply by the stiffness to mass ratios. And we determine the stiffness to mass ratios by considering the effective mass and the effective stiffness. We obtain the effective mass using Nail's method and the effective stiffness using Timoshenko-Green theory. And the parameters which affect the effective mass and stiffness are primarily the straight and flexure dimensions, then the number of flexures that attach the scanner to the frame, the location, and the spacing between the beams. So, the first thing that requires to be done in the design process is to find out which are the modes which tend to be excited. And intuitively, we find that some of the modes which tend to be the first resonant frequency are as follows, listed over here. We also make a model and do a simulation to confirm this list of natural frequencies mentioned here. And these three videos here show you a schematic of three resonant frequencies. Namely, its translation along the actuation direction, which is this direction. Then there is a translation in the out of plane direction, which is actually an unwanted direction. And then there is also a rotation that is seen of the stage. And however, we find that for all configurations of beam dimensions and location of beams, the rotation mode always comes out to be the third mode. And these two modes, sometimes one will be the first, the other one will be the second. And therefore, we limit our analysis to just these two modes. point is this unwanted motion excited. So, general equation for the resonant frequencies, since we have modeled a simple 1 degree of mass scale system, this is the equation over here, the square root of the ratios effective stiffness and effective mass. And for the two modes shown over here, so this is the actuation mode, and here we find that the flexure stiffness and the stiffness of the piezo actuator act in series, and therefore the contributions to the stiffness are the stiffness due to flexure and the stiffness due to piezo actuator. And these contributors to the effective mass are the mass of the flexural beams, which over here, the mass of the piezo actuator and the mass of the stage itself. However, in the out of plane mode, what we see is that the stiffness is affected only by the flexural beams and not by the piezo actuator. And the primary reason for this is that piezo actuator has much lesser stiffness in its out of plane direction as compared to its actuation direction. And the second reason we don't consider the stiffness of the piezo actuator is as follows. If we remove the stiffness of the piezo actuator, we basically reduce the resonant frequency that is predicted. And therefore that's a conservative design where even in a case where there is no piezo actuator attached, the natural frequency is beyond the actuation natural frequency. And for these two reasons, we make the piezo actuator similarly in the effective mass. Next, we consider the effect of cross coupling. Cross coupling, simply put, is unwanted displacement in any other direction apart from the actuation direction. So that is basically the off-axis direction, and also rotation of the stage. And the primary causes of this are, as you can see, there is an eccentric force here. The eccentricity in actuation is almost inevitable because there are practical difficulties in installing the piezo actuator exactly at the center of the stage. There will always be some eccentricity due to which there is going to be some cross coupling. Similarly, there are manufacturing limitations, and therefore the flexural beams cannot be manufactured to very close tolerances, resulting in asymmetries in the flexural beams. And the effects of cross coupling is one, the scanning range is limited, as there is a bound on the permissible cross coupling, which therefore limits the possible scanning range. And the other effect is that the control process is complicated. In order to attain the high precision required in nanoprocessing systems, there is always a controller and a closed loop, and cross coupling complicates this control process. We present analytical relations for cross coupling, and for that we model the stage as a rigid body, and the flexures are modeled as coiled Bernoulli beams. The boundary conditions are as follows. The one end is considered fixed to the frame, and the other end is constrained to move along with the stage. That is, its displacement and slope equals the slope and displacement of the central stage. And these are the relations that we obtain. On the left is the relation for the off-axis displacement, and this is the relation for rotation. As you can see in these expressions, the eccentric loading causes no lateral displacement, only rotation. However, rotation is caused by both effects. There is the effect of eccentricity over here, and there is this effect of geometric asymmetries. However, it is found that the sensitivity to eccentricity is much more than geometric asymmetries, and we also find that the lateral displacement is dependent only on the dimension S and not dimension A. So this can be used to design a stage in which the geometry is such that S is reduced and A is kept large, which therefore reduces the cross coupling. Next, we present a design algorithm. So what we do is we start with initial flexure length and width, and then we iterate on both the length and the width. And then for each such iteration, this is a constraint that is applied. That is, the stiffness of the flexure cannot be more than 10% of the stiffness of the piezo actuator. The reason for this is as follows. The stiffness of the flexural beams limits the achievable range for the system. If you increase the flexural stiffness, then the range comes down, and therefore we keep this constraint that the flexural stiffness has to be less than or equal to 10% of the stiffness of the piezo actuator. And for this condition, and for this L and H, we calculate thickness B. And for these geometry, then we calculate the three natural frequencies, which are namely the actuation natural frequency, piezo actuator attached and without the piezo actuator attached, and the natural frequency in the output direction. Next, we apply this condition on the frequencies obtained. So if the natural frequency in the output plane direction is greater than the natural frequency in actuation direction, we accept that design. Hence we reject that design and continue with this process. We also give a 5% safety margin. So therefore the natural frequency in output plane direction is at least 5% more than the natural frequency in actuation direction. So once we have a set of design values, we then calculate the cross coupling matrix for each of the design sets. And then we compare this and we choose a design which has a good balance of minimal cross coupling and at the same time a high range, a high scanning, high resolution sensor. And these two effects fight against each other, so there is a trade-off that has to be done. If you try to reduce the cross coupling, that affects the resonant frequencies. And similarly, if you increase the resonant frequencies, it affects the cross coupling. And therefore, a judicial balance needs to be found. Next, we do an experimental validation of the relation that we presented. So here what you see is a single axis stage that we designed using the algorithm just presented. What you see over here is a piezo actuator and here is a pre-stressing mechanism. And then we use a laser Doppler vibrometer to measure the displacement of the scanner for a given piezo actuation. And we measure the resonant frequencies for two cases. One in which the piezo actuator is attached as shown over here. And the second case, we remove the piezo actuator and then measure the natural frequency. And these are the obtained frequency responses. This is for the case where there is no piezo actuator. This is the case where there is a piezo actuator. And the table here compares the analytically predicted values, the FEA simulation values, and what we obtain using experiment. And we find that in the case where there is no piezo actuator, there is a good agreement between the three. In the case of the second case where the piezo actuator is attached, we find good agreement with analytical and FEA values. However, we find a difference with the experimentally determined values. But what we see is that as we increase the pre-stress is increased by tightening this nut, and we find that this peak shifts to the right, and therefore we believe that this is an effect of pre-stress. And the reason for putting pre-stress is to make sure that the piezo actuator does not lose contact with the stage. So as you would have noticed, the piezo actuator is not bonded to the stage. The only way it is attached is using this stressing mechanism over here. And so there is a possibility that during motion, the piezo actuator actually loses contact with the stage over here, which is why we apply an initial pre-stress. And we find that we require pre-stress to make sure that the piezo actuator does not lose contact throughout the scan range. Turns out to be greater than the strength of the piezo actuator itself. Therefore, we don't apply such a large pre-stress. Next, we perform a parametric study on the design. And the parameters that we study are the flexural length, so the effect of flexural length on resonant frequencies, and the effect of number of flexures on the resonant frequencies. And then we also study the cross coupling due to the two effects that I mentioned earlier, namely the geometric inaccuracies and the asymmetry in forcing. So what we see on the left is a plot showing the variation of resonant frequencies with length of the beam. As expected, at smaller beam lengths, there is a large variation in natural frequency to beam length, and the change saturates and the change is less pronounced for larger beam lengths. What is also seen in this plot is a good agreement between FEA and analytically predicted values for all three natural frequencies present. On the right is a surface diagram which shows the resonant frequencies, its variation with the flexural length and flexural width. And the surface on the bottom is the surface for the natural frequency in actuation direction, and the other one is for the resonant frequency in out of plane direction. And the region of interest is this section where the resonant frequency in out of plane direction exceeds the resonant frequency in actuation direction. And therefore, any design which comes in this area is of interest. Next, we study the effect of number of beams on the natural frequency. So this is for the faster stage, and we find that the blue line which represents the variation of natural frequency in the resonant direction reduces as we increase the number of beams, which is an effect we do not want, as the primary requirement is to increase the natural frequencies. And therefore we choose the minimum possible number of beams, which is 4. 4 is the absolute minimum number of beams, and therefore we select 4 to be the number of beams for the fast stage. In the case of the slow stage, however, we find that there is hardly any variation in the natural frequency, in the actuation direction, and number of beams, but there is a large variation in the out-of-plane direction frequency with number of beams. And as I mentioned earlier, we would like the out-of-plane natural frequency to be much larger than the natural frequency in actuation, and therefore we choose a large beam number, namely 12 number of beams for the slow stage. Next, we compare the cross coupling. So on the left, these two plots are for off-axis displacement and these two are for rotation. In this plot, we consider the off-axis displacement, this variation with tolerance in thickness of the flexural beam and its width. And we find that the off-axis displacement is more sensitive to tolerances in flexural thickness. This is because the thickness is a smaller dimension of the beam, and therefore we find this to be the more critical dimension which affects cross coupling. Same is found to be the case for the rotation of the stage. It is more sensitive to tolerance in the thickness of the flexure as compared to tolerance in the width. And therefore, we use the more sensitive dimension thickness to compare it with eccentricity. And now in this plot, we are comparing the variation of cross coupling with